Good day, good people. You're listening to Lifted with Carrie Lee, and today's guest is the lovely Sarah DeHaven of Adept Guidance. Sarah is a spiritual astrologer and guide. Yeah, and so much more. Welcome to the show, Sarah. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me to be on.
I'm actually so excited that you said yes, and I've been looking forward to today's conversation. Not enough to get me out of the present, but enough that I was smiling this morning. So I didn't really meet Sarah, but I found Sarah on YouTube listening to her Lucifer report. And no, we're not talking Satanism. We're talking about the asteroid Lucifer and how it moves around our planet and through our natal chart. So maybe we could start there. How did you come about the Lucifer report, and how has it affected, I don't know, your life sharing it?
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, that's a great place to start actually. Because
Awesome.
I get so excited about the concept of Lucifer, and it's not because of like this whole Prince of Darkness thing or satanic or Luciferian thing. What I love about Lucifer, the archetype, is that in evolutionary astrology, which is an astrology that is very near and dear to my heart, this asteroid features prominently. And the reason why is because from an evolutionary standpoint, it shows us the concept of where we're separating, where the force of separating is separating us from source, and how it is, right? And so it's a complex concept that could be made succinct and just it shows us where evil exists when we look at this asteroid, but it also shows us how we can transmute evil through consciousness and willful action into a thing of beauty, right? Because Lucifer also depicts incredible beauty and talent before the fall, right? So if we think about him prior to fall or working its way through its karma in order to manifest its ultimate iteration, it can show that facet in us where there's darkness that we can transmute into our most beautiful iteration through humility, through courage, through whatever our personal karma is, right? It's going to be very different based on everyone's charts. And so, anyways, the show, I started doing a show looking at Lucifer in astrology because if we look at the transits, which is basically like the astrological weather at any given time, you can look at Lucifer and see how it's impacting everybody on the whole in the aggregate. And it's just interesting to me because one of the biggest things about evil is evil is insidious. It doesn't really like to be out there. It would prefer to be insidious because that's how it gets its work done.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
In the
right?
shadows.
Yeah, and even tricking people into thinking they're doing good, but then it turns out that they're like, they're kind of off the path, right? And so if we look at it and scrutinize it, and this has been who I was ever since I was little, Carrie Lee, is the person who is willing to look under that rock and look at all the gross, crusty bugs and weird shit that's under there and then point it out to people. And so with Asteroid Lucifer, that's basically what I'm doing.
And that must be why we connect the way that we do, because I've always been that kid too. Oh, look at the other side of this. And everybody's like, no, we were happy with the shiny side.
Yeah, right. Yeah, much prefer the shiny side rather than the creepy crawlies underneath because they make me uncomfortable. I don't want to look at that.
Right, but they're fascinating. See, so people like us, they're fascinating. And it's like Lucifer's the ultimate alchemist.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolute alchemy in understanding what's being offered when you're looking at how Lucifer's traveling in the sky. It was helpful. I've always been, as far as the mythos goes of Lucifer, I've always been very sympathetic
Mm-hmm.
because to me, I never got the demon devil picking at us to do bad things. I was never into blaming, right? It's like more of an opportunity. Look at like I've never seen Lucifer as this thing saying you need to do bad because that will make me happy. And selling your soul. It was never about that. It was about, exposing. He's the light bearer. he brings the light. He's shining light on maybe the shit that you don't want to see.
Exactly. It's funny because there's this astrologer. I recommend him to anyone, like to yourself, Carrie Lee, or anyone who's listening, is Tom Jacobs. He's another evolutionary astrologer who studies Lucifer very deeply. And one of the things that he shared that I find is just brilliant and makes so much sense as someone myself who has strong Lucifer contacts in my own chart is it's that force that points out where the emperor doesn't have clothes as well. There's this kind of anarchist I'm going to become my own person and go my own way energy with this as well. That can go dark or light or anything in between, depending on how we choose to express it, right?
Yeah, definitely the agitator archetype.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's for sure. That's
Not
for
too
sure.
concerned with the outcome of what that agitation might cause.
Yeah, and if
Actually
we,
kind of turned on by it. Not turned on, but like excited. Because you
mhm.
know that once you agitate something, that something's going to happen. There's going to be change. There's going to be an evolution. There could be a de-evolution, and that might not be a bad thing either.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like we can't really necessarily know. I guess the only way we can really know um, or find solace is in finding peace in our own actions, right?
Exactly. That's so true. Now, um, the current weather out there, we all know it's sun in Gemini because I won't shut up about it. But
Yep, 5 degrees. Yep.
right? But why don't you give me and our listeners a little bit of insight about what we're looking at right now astrologically in the sky?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of air energy, and that air energy is interacting with some very heavy players in the Earth realm at the moment, like Pluto, the Lord of the Underworld, being in Capricorn, and Jupiter as well. I mean, King of the Gods, right? Also in Capricorn. So these, although only two planets at the moment are in Capricorn, technically, they're very powerful. And then aside from that, there's a lot of air element energy going on right now. We got Saturn in Aquarius, it's retrograde moving into Capricorn. So it will be getting heavier soon in the coming weeks. But we have the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the North Node of the Moon all in Gemini. So this kind of energy, when I think about air and earth, air is energy that is, it's very light, it's movable, even changeable in a lot of ways in temperature, in clarity. And then the earth is, it's very heavy and dense. So these two elements don't necessarily understand each other intuitively. From a metaphysical standpoint, or maybe a more esoteric standpoint, Earth, especially in Capricorn, can represent an unwillingness to want to change. There can be this need to control our environment and even control our thoughts and other people's behavior in order to feel comfortable. An interesting thing about Capricorn energy is if you think about goats, like if you just watch like ibex goats, for instance, IBEX goats,
Mm-hmm.
um, they move up hills and like they're almost vertical with this precision that requires very careful movement. And with Capricorn energy, it is very much about climbing from step to step, almost in a fractal like unfolding way. But the way we currently move as a species, a lot of us are finding difficulty letting go of being okay with how we climb because we've been trained to climb a specific way. A lot of people may be finding it difficult to figure out how to do that now, especially with all the shifting that's going on. Luckily, we've got a lot of Gemini helping us out because Gemini is great energy for refreshing stagnation because it's mutable air, right?
Yeah,
So
for
it is
sure.
air that's moving, circulating, right? And so this can help give us new ideas through not just our own inspirations or inquisitiveness and curiosity, but through interacting with even people in our neighborhood, our brothers and sisters, and that can be on a much more wide level than just our literal physical blood brothers and sisters, but communicating with people in our tribe through verbal or text communication, any kind of communication where we're exchanging ideas or just getting out what we need to say. It doesn't seem like it makes sense linearly that this would actually help us to deal with the shifts that are happening all around us. But right now, this is energy that can help us because it's in the sky, all this Gemini, and that's going on, with the sun in Gemini for the next about a month or so. And Mercury's moving out and going into Cancer soon. So it's going to be more watery in the coming weeks towards the end of June. But from what I can tell, at least at the moment, this is a great time for conversation, sharing ideas, having fun, and trying out plans and seeing how they work. Because Gemini, a great thing about Gemini energy is it doesn't get hung up on failure. It likes to just keep trying new things, like seeing things from a different angle, going in maybe a completely different direction just through a random inspiration. And so, yeah, just briefly, that's what I see. I could go on and on and on about it, but essentially Saturn is in Aquarius moving into Capricorn, like I was saying, though. So there is also, with the retrograde energies of so many planets in the sky right now, it's not so much a time of action as such, but it is a time of, like I said, maybe just preparing through the things I mentioned, like conversation, curiosity, implementing and trying out some ideas, maybe gathering some data. Like right now, for instance, food. People are very freaked out about what's going to happen with the food moving into the colder seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a good time to maybe think of some ideas of how you can prepare for that even now, and not in a way that's like fear-based, because Gemini, that's not Gemini, right? And Mercury's there, Venus and the Sun is there. These energies, like Venus, definitely, I mean, it's our survival instinct, yes, but it doesn't want to feel uncomfortable. So to help feed homeostasis in ourselves with Gemini energy in the sky with Venus and the Sun and Mercury, I feel like it's more about just maybe approaching it like almost with a childlike curiosity about, oh, what could I try out? This could be fun. Maybe I could do it this way. It's about cleverness and tapping into that.
Yeah, it's brainstorming time.
Yeah, to subvert the iron fist of a paradigm that has been dead for, from what I can tell, at least 5 years now, but doesn't want to stay dead. It's just like a zombie trying to stay alive. Maybe I'm getting a bit out there.
No, I'm following you totally. It's just clinging to the sides and the bottom's dropped out, right?
That's what it feels like to me, at least. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it does feel very much like it's like a 105-year-old man who has had his sixth heart transplant because they just don't want to let go of the earthquake.
We're not going to mention any names.
No names.
Which brings us back to your tea spilling videos.
Oh,
And you're not doing them anymore. And you know what? It's cool. I can see how I actually have a lot of respect for the integrity that you're carrying and saying, you know what, I don't necessarily want to do this. But at the same time, I was also very intrigued in the Gwyneth Paltrow. Go to Adept Guidance on YouTube. Follow Sarah's work. It's not just great information. You're funny too. You have a great way of delivering the information. So, like, my husband and I find ourselves laughing quite a bit and nodding in agreement and then, like, pausing because we get into these massive conversations about whatever it is that you just said. But the dish is funny.
Oh, it's true. I love tea. Like, who doesn't like some crumpets and tea and gossip? Like, I don't know who doesn't. And so, like, for me personally, I won't lie. I watch YouTube dramas. I follow this stuff because it's one of my guilty pleasures. I'm sorry, I'm a flawed human being. Like, I like garbage and dumpster fires, like
You're in good
internet drama.
company.
I do, but it's some of the stuff that helps keep me sane, because I also like I said, I love the darkness, and this stuff shows humanity at its like darkest when you follow some of this stuff, right? And so, like, I've watched some people read Bill Gates, for instance. Like my latest video, I said I wouldn't do Bill Gates or anyone else going forward. I've watched some people, and like there's some great information, and we can learn a lot about people. But there's this part of me that's that part that won't let me sleep at night if I don't do what's right for me. And what part of that is I'm still trying to figure it out, because I don't want to stop spilling tea. I just want to figure out how to do it in a way that's helping to create growth and life, because I feel like part of the subversion of our feminine energy has been to I guess encourage us to want to kill things rather than figure out how to invigorate things. And I think we can still be funny and entertaining without taking away from someone else's potential to redeem themselves. I know that sounds very idealistic, but that's kind of what I'm striving for, and I
But
don't know if
that's
I'll be able to do that, but
But
yeah.
that's what we're here for, though. This whole, yeah, you sit there and say, well, that sounds idealistic. Fine, sure. But we're supposed to be finding this balance. I can remember writing a poem when I was really young, grade 6 or 7, and my teacher saying that I was very altruistic, and
Mm,
as if that was just not a possibility. And and I think it was like a poem on my idea of what love was, kind of type thing. But the reality of it is that we do need to balance ourselves out to some kind of. Um, I was discussing this with my last guest, Jacob Nordby, about balance. We have to have some kind of balance. There has to be that, or else you're teetering too much one way or the other way. And like, we don't want to go back to a full-on matriarchy. I don't. I
no.
don't think that we should be. It can't go one way or the other. There has to be some kind of middle way. So you have to,
Yes.
the balance that I hear from you explaining this is, I want to be able to tell the truth
Mm-hmm.
without it being catty, almost, without it being detrimental in a negative. I just want to tell the truth and have it heard, because that's a lot of what I find myself doing is, I'll shut myself up because I don't want to kill the thing that I'm trying to speak out about. But sometimes it's very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And
I can.
sometimes it needs to be. Oh, sorry, Carrie Lee.
No,
Sorry.
no, I was just empathizing. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, and sometimes it needs to be spoken out about too. Like, I'm probably going to say a lot of TMI type of things, but where I'm at in my life, I just feel like being open about all things is important. And so I don't mean to trigger anybody, but I was sexually abused very severely, like from a very early age, and nothing was done for a very long time. And I learned that when I did speak up, that it was ignored. It was belittled
Yeah.
and diminished. And the thing about that is what it taught me. I got very frustrated. I started fighting with kids at school. I went from being basically like the golden kid at school with my teachers to being a nightmare, right? Because I there was all this injustice in the world and I didn't know what to do with it as a kid, so I just got
Hmm.
violent, right? That
Yeah,
Aries energy.
absolutely. That makes complete sense, though, that you would go on that attack almost.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, what I learned from this, though, is essentially that, like, sometimes we do actually need, because I've grown so much in difficult ways, but I have grown a lot into where it is I want to go, and I'm continuing on that path. And part of it comes from expressing ourselves honestly. And sometimes that's not a pretty thing to look at necessarily, right?
No,
And
it
so,
definitely
yeah.
isn't.
Yeah. And I don't know
Okay.
really where I'm going with that, but I just feel like it's relevant to the conversation on some level.
No, definitely, though, if telling the truth isn't going to be, it's like, okay, so if I speak the truth and you can't feel love in it, you cannot tell me that I'm not loving enough because I spoke truth that you didn't feel love from. I've been
Yeah.
attacked for this. There's no love in your truth. Well, wait a minute. I wasn't trying to evoke feeling. I was trying to share truth. There's
Mm.
a difference between, like, I mean, I don't know. I understand emotional intelligence and speaking truth. I don't. Do you know what I'm trying to get to here?
I think I do because I feel like I've experienced this. I'm gonna see. We'll see if we're on the same page here. But
Hmm.
there's been times I've brought forth. Oh, this is a great example, and this one is really. It's just it's a story, but I think it's kind of funny.
Go ahead.
Like you, I'm glad you laugh at my stuff because honestly, part of me feels like a comedian too. There's that comedian part of me that wants to just joke and troll sometimes too. And so one day, what I did on a friend's wall, this was a couple years ago, was they posted something about feeding their pets crystal water, like from, like rose
Yeah.
quartzes and crystals. And I just had to come in and I was like, hey everybody, did you know that pet ownership is slavery? You know, I just wanted all the vegans out there to know that. Have, hashtag vote Trump 2020, which obviously was me like trolling because for one,
Yeah, for sure.
I don't necessarily like I don't advocate for any kind of government system in that sense because I think they're all corrupt. I wouldn't vote for Trump even if you paid me, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
but there was truth in what I was saying. But I actually that I got massive backlash from that because apparently people were focused more on the delivery rather than the words. And this is something I've noticed a lot in general. Like, this is a silly example I'm using, but I've noticed a lot in the world where when somebody points out a truth, but they might be angry while they're doing it, or rude, or maybe just not nice in general, just not like, just saying it, serving it up real kind of a thing, and not really caring for feelings, but just the information more so.
The word tone comes to mind.
Oh, yes, your tone, right? The tone policing thing is
Uh-huh.
huge. And so it's this situation where, I mean, yeah, I feel I have learned a lot where I do honestly feel like, yeah, okay, we can get the truth across to people if we are more mindful of where they're at and meet them halfway. But sometimes it's just fun to do it the way that you would have naturally done it if you didn't have to think so hard.
I'd rather just be me. And if
Yeah.
I come off as cocky and you can't handle the way that I'm presenting myself, I'm really sorry your sense of humor is broken.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mean to, I mean, I understand. No, I'm not saying that the things that come out of my mouth are always perfect, but I mean, oof, if you're gonna take away from the meat of the message because you didn't like the delivery, then I think that there's some hang-ups that you should be dealing with. Just saying.
I just feel like, as a person myself who has a lot of Capricorn energy, I don't need help feeling heavy, right? So if I can laugh in life,
Ain't that the truth?
right? That's what I'm saying. And so, like, if you can get laughs in life, like, yeah, okay, like this is part of what makes life worth living. Plus like, comedy can help us open up our mind in ways that nothing else can. I mean, art in general is one of the forms that helps us to expand and evolve, and comedy is definitely up there, in my humble opinion, of course.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, because it opens up everything. Laughter opens things. It doesn't close them off, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when it's done right? This is the key, is if you can get into a center space in yourself where you love yourself enough, you're coming from a sincere place. It doesn't matter how other people react. You're just here to be and say what needs to be said from just truth and sincerity, right? Like, that kind of comedy often can work miracles of magic. And I have noticed in my own self, just through experimentation, if there is something off in me that's unaddressed, like that, like I said, that Lucifer energy, those little bits of evil, right, that want to poke through or weave their way through your words, so to speak, right in on you. Um, I have noticed, if there's even a little bit of that in me, the backlash I get is just and fair. In certain ways, in the sense of, like, I see where I could have been more in integrity to myself, like
Yeah,
what
I
I
can
really
see
wanted
that
to
too.
do.
And then it
Yeah.
teaches you a lesson, but you're able to look at that with integrity and you're looking at yourself with a discerning eye.
As much as possible, right? Which isn't easy all the time.
Well, no, of course not. Of course
Yes,
not.
yes.
But I mean, we're not here to be perfect humans,
No, no, no. God, oh my God.
whatever
No.
that might be. I
I
can't
don't
even.
even know. Well,
I
actually, yeah, I
don't
am
know.
here to be a perfect human. That's actually true.
What's
But
that?
I said, actually, I am here to be a perfect human. I have Lucifer and Leo on my rising. So
Oh,
actually, I'm here to be a perfect person. But the perfect person is just to let go and let myself be myself.
yeah,
Just let the fuck go.
it's true though. It is. It's the idea of letting go of everything that has been you've built up around yourself, other people have built up around you, that you just that have detached the programming, the all of it.
Yep.
Shedding all of that is work.
Yeah, especially if you're of a type, and I think you might know what I'm talking about here, where you've come in carrying quite a lot of DNA memory of ancestral trauma,
Yeah.
and the need in this life, like the need on a gut level to deal with that, to clean it up.
It's daunting, it's
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming, and
Yeah.
but it's like such a necessity that you ache to do what you came here to do, and it and I for a long time I was justifying it. Now I just I've been saying this a lot. I don't care. I care to the point where I can deliver what needs to be delivered, and then I let go of the outcome. And that's been huge. Letting
Mm-hmm.
go of outcome is something that I'm not okay with. I really want everything to work in the light that I'm presenting it as. I hate when others distort what I'm trying to do, but
Yeah.
that's not, I've had to learn how to let go of that because it was killing me. I was destroying myself carrying way too much.
Well, yeah, because it's like it kind of makes me think of the whole concept of, in I guess it's in an Egyptian culture with the feather and the heart, Ma'at and Anubis, I think they weigh your heart to
Yeah.
see how, I guess we could say how pure you are or something like that. And that's part of it, like carrying even the weight of other people's distorted perceptions and taking that on inside it can be such a well, I guess for lack of a better term, a scam on ourselves. Like we kind of trick ourselves into thinking that stuff matters. And I've definitely been there. I mean, this is part of even how our culture is woven to consider other people's opinions for survival reasons, right? Like we need approval from others to survive, but yet at the same time, as an evolving species that is heart-based in intelligence, at least from what I can tell, like
Mm,
in our ideal iteration, in our healthy iteration, our 0 point default, we're much more mindful and heart-based. Um, there's more freedom to just be, to think
well,
how you would like to do the math, your math the way you want to breathe the way you want to, as long as you're not doing harm. And
yeah,
so,
no. And okay, let's get to that. Let's get to do no harm and the word evil. And this is one of the things that I connect exactly to what you're saying. Evil. Everybody's like, oh, there's no such thing as evil. Oh, there
yeah.
is. There is such thing as evil. And the way you describe it as being unnatural, right?
Hmm.
To go against nature is exactly how I feel about it. And this isn't talking about, and people get uppity because they want to be uppity. And I'm going to say that this isn't about sexuality. This is, I don't care. I'm going to say this. I don't think I've said it on the show yet. I don't care who you're sleeping with. I don't care what you're eating. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care. Just don't shove any of it down my throat. I
Yeah.
don't care what you do as long as you go make yourself happy, be happy, but don't think I have to be like you for you to be happy with me being happy with me. Fuck off. All right, now that I've gotten that out of the way, I feel so much better now.
But
Like
that
this
was good.
weight
That was good.
is just off my shoulders. Okay, so evil. And this
Hmm.
idea that it goes against nature, it goes against the natural order of things, it goes against natural progression. It's man trying to play God. And of course, no, I'm not going to sit here and talk entity and biblical and this or that or the other. But when you try to match and fool creation, who's the fool? And then I'll
Yeah.
just you talk now.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. This is actually why, as much as I love Elon Musk, and Elon, if you're listening, I would totally love to be your personal advisor. You need one, like for real. Um, I just want to
Elon,
say, what's that? Sorry.
Elon, call her.
It's like a life goal, seriously. But anyway, like the whole transhumanist agenda and this whole concept of uplinking souls into machines, like you idiots. I mean, and it's not even me trying to be rude. It's just
No, you
we're not
idiots.
we're just not there, right? Like we're not there. We don't even, these people can't even acknowledge the existence of spirit, of life force. And how could they possibly infuse that into a machine? Like it'll never be real. I mean, you could create some sort of weird golem egregore thing that is like a half, like it's a husk. It's not actually alive, for
Uh,
sure.
And there's all kinds of those things already running around the world.
Oh yeah, and some of them with full consent. Like, here, you take it. It's too hard. Like, I don't want to be here, and I don't blame them. But like, yeah, that's a thing.
Well, like I
Yeah.
mean, if we're at the, excuse me, just and then please go back. But if we're at the height of, say, technological understanding and advancement, we are not there anywhere near there spiritually.
No, and like for a world where the physical realm is the most spiritual realm, this is where all the spirituality manifests. This is the proof of your intent, your integrity, your sincerity, your heart. It manifests in the physical realm. So if you can't even acknowledge the existence of spirituality, which a lot of people like it feels like it's being denigrated in certain ways, and in other ways it's almost like a facsimile of spirituality because it's externalized rather than internalized. Like we'll never find our spirit if we're always taking, like, these weird, like, just living that selfie weird lifestyle thing. And I'm not against selfies, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not.
No.
But I just mean this whole thing where we're living in a mirror rather than inside of our true self, right? Like, that kind of stuff to me is what I see as evil, where we turn away from the voice within, because everyone has access to the truth. It's a different angle on it, of course, because we're all unique, but we all have access to knowing what it is our potential is from within. No one on the outside actually knows any of that. We can look at charts, we can read cards, we can use all sorts of different tools of divination or psychology to look into these things, and we can get a picture, but we'll never be inside the picture because we're not that one entity that is the picture, so to speak. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Okay, so I'm just going to tell the folks that are listening that I've had a few readings done by you, and you've said to me in the reading, I might just be talking out my ass here. I don't know if this is what is actually going on, but it is exactly what's going on, and I'm able to confirm that to you, that you are getting that information properly. And that's what we do with each other. We're able to, like, not validate each other, that because that's not what it is. And there is such a fine line between validation and support, I guess, because we do need to hear those things from each other, where it's like, no, it's not, you're okay, or no, maybe you're not okay, so maybe you need to redirect yourself. I appreciate stuff like that. I appreciate constructive criticism. I appreciate someone helping to build me up. I don't like being told what to do.
Oh God, yeah, I hear that. Yeah, that's like the last thing I want, and I know sometimes that's a thing for me, but I can hear that completely. It's just not. It doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't, and I think it's probably a lot of what's inside of us from past stuff too. Okay, so in the last show I did, and I shared with you a little bit about this with you earlier, I realized that I was put into a position. Anybody who hasn't listened to the show with Jacob Norby, please go and listen to it. If not, that's fine too. But you might get something from it. I was put in a position at a very young age to stand up in front of a group of people to enact a change that someone else wanted to happen, that being my, at the time, choir director. And I suffered for that. I wish I remember what my point was. I think that we've all been in those situations where we've been put, especially the feminine energies, a feminine gift being put in front of the world to try and sway the ways of the masses by a male entity trying to get something out of it. And so it's bastardized and ruined, and they're missing the point. When I listen back to this, I really hope there was some meat to the thing that I just said, because I feel like I just went in a circle.
I feel like you had a point, and I know that, like, that, even what you just said, it makes sense. I'm the drawing the lines though. I don't know. It's like we're in Gemini season, and I'm just like, oh, Sarah, fall back on astrology. No, but seriously, like,
It's true.
mutable air, right? Like, sometimes the conversation can be a bit tangential or disjointed. Even in my last video, I was saying the same thing. Like, sometimes we need to just talk things out to get to a point. And if we don't, we don't. That's fine too.
Right, there's gravy in all of it. I'm just
Yeah,
hoping.
yeah. No, there is. Interesting what you were saying actually about male energy using the feminine energy without realizing it. Like, this happens even on levels where you don't have to be a male to exhibit this. You can be female and exhibit this. It's going to be different, obviously, based on from individual to individual. But that whole exploitative mindset, this is part of the root of the problem, not this wanting to understand. Listening, right? These are feminine qualities: understanding, listening, observation.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I'm just throwing that one out there to add to add to
No,
what
it's
you were
true.
saying.
I like it. It's good. It's all gold.
Yeah.
I all right. So, where are we going now in my brain? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about what you see in the summer ahead of us. Now, when you and I have talked about, like, the overall weather, I had
Mm-hmm.
said that I had seen some concerns because everybody is really running around fearfully right now, and I see it triggering my own fear responses that I've had to be really on top of. So
Yeah, yeah.
how do you see that playing out astrologically?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it has been a real test for all of us. Even some of the strongest people I know who you like would never think crack are cracking. And I've even had some of these people that I work with tell me personally, and I was shocked. Like, so I feel like this is an across the board kind of a thing, whether or not people are showing it on their face or not. And of course, like you said, we are seeing a lot of it in the masses around too, because there's not a lot of guidance or like from a source that is focused. Like there's all this information coming from all different angles, and that makes sense with Neptune and Pisces. Like Pisces is the media, right? Pisces is deception, and of course, when I say this, it's not just that; it's also compassion and faith and things. But it can, when it's used in a distorted manner, what we see usually are when people are lying, or where there is hiding of the truth or obfuscation of the truth, or the truth is hard to grasp. And so when we don't know what the truth is or where things are going, very, very Neptune Pisces thing, right? We don't know where God is, so to speak, or salvation or freedom or safety. Um, it can be really heightened. And over the summer, oh man, well, I mean, Mars or Mercury goes retrograde and joins the retrograde brigade around like the end of June, right? And that's in Cancer. Lucifer's still going to be in Cancer for that time too, and it goes actually over some points in the chart that depict our evolution in society and on a soul level as a collective species. So there's going to be some triggers emotionally that could cause us to even regress into childhood traumas, that but they might be relooped into the present day to a point where we don't see the source of that loop being childhood. But what we can see is strongly heightened emotions. Mars will be in Pisces for a lot of this time, and then moves into Aries too, though. So once Mars goes into Aries around the end of June 30th or so, we're going to be feeling a renewed sense of let's get shit done. Let's start taking action. So that's going to be more towards the end of June, like I said. But I would say that's going to be our window of time to move towards whatever we're called to move towards during that time, in the sense of taking physical action. There's I mean, Chiron's in Aries too, so there may be a hypersensitivity to taking action without getting some sort of response from the outside world, but it's about having faith in ourselves to just be true to ourselves, be true in our actions to what's inside of us, even if that um, doesn't make sense to other people. This is a time of getting to know ourselves and tapping into ourselves, because that's how we're going to steer through these shifts, is through faith in ourselves and our own inner guidance system in a lot of ways. And so over the summer, yeah, we're going to have a chance to go into that. And then Mars goes retrograde on the what is it, like the 10th of September? So at the end of the summer, yeah, it's like the 10th of September, Mars goes retrograde in Aries. And so Mars is going to be in Aries for a very long time. I would just say over the summer, this is a good time to um, take more action, because this is more a yin period we're in right now. I would say take more action towards the things you want to do, but take it a step at a time. Pay attention to your motivations, because like I was mentioning about that Cancer energy that's going to be in the sky, um, we can be very emotionally vulnerable. And so we got to take good care of ourselves too, right? Like, don't rush yourself to do anything hasty. Just kind of trust your instincts and go where you're led to go, and take life a day at a time. Uranus is also in Taurus. I'm going to wrap this up in a sec here. Uranus is also in Taurus. So this Uranus talks about how we emancipate ourselves and individuate, become free adult human beings, who it is we want to be, right? Our own person. And when Uranus is in Taurus, which it will be up until I think like 2025 or something like that, this whole energy is upheaval in the physical realm as far as our survival and safety is concerned, in order to teach us that we can actually survive anything. And we can do it from a space of peace and harmony from within. Taurus energy, self-sufficiency, right? So a lot of the stuff that's happening over the summer, I can't say exactly what's going to pop off, but we might see some stuff like that could cause us to feel even more uh, uncertainty about the future. And so part of what's going to help with that is the stuff I mentioned, like doing the inner work as far as just being at home with yourself, spend time with yourself, be kind to yourself as much as you can. because that's going to help you to be kind to others. And take it slow, because if you take it slow, then you'll be able to take the best steps possible in a time that can be really heightened. And if we take hasty action right now, we could really F ourselves up. So I didn't want to freak anyone out. Sorry, I get it. I kind of like, I just feel like this is going to be an intense summer, but I also don't think that, I think if we trust ourselves and follow the path with faith in ourselves and building that faith in ourselves, we could actually see some very beautiful things unfold over this time. Very delicate though, so we want to take care of it and take it slow. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
It's really interesting that you're saying this because all I hear is self-reliance, self-responsibility. I'm hearing it's time to trust ourselves. It's time to actually believe in who the fuck we are. You're more than welcome to swear. And I, it's self-responsibility. It's self-reliance, and I don't mean standing as a pillar all unto yourself with nobody. I'm just saying that maybe self-trust and like truly believing in yourself is something that we need to be cultivating. Um, I am going to speak from my own experience because it's all I have.
Mhm.
Not all I have, but I was going to do this interview with you on Sunday. And I postponed it because I was like, you know what? I really need to sit with the last interview I did. I really need to honor my feelings right now and do the work that this just presented me with. And I was super impressed that I was able to do that and not feel a whole shit ton of guilt that, usually comes along with maybe not keeping to your word or pushing yourself, right? Because we're taught that we need to push ourselves to be bigger and better and badassier or whatever. And it's just not necessary. I think that I'm more of a badass for listening to myself than I am for trying to push myself through something, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be as good as what this is right now. I don't think I would have been, I want to say, stable enough or focused enough or centered enough to speak with you on Sunday. It's just an example of how I think I'm showing that I listened to myself and it paid off.
Yeah, and that's what integrity is like. Because here's the thing, like with this Capricorn energy that is depicting this shift from a very kind of we could say confined and regimented societal paradigm. We're shifting into one that's a little bit more allowing, right? And part of that is learning what integrity really is. Integrity isn't keeping your word even though you know on the inside you need to do something else. Integrity is being honest about that, and that's why I just think it helps a lot for all of us to kind of ease up on where we're controlling things a lot, even down to things like schedules and timing. Sometimes people get upset like if someone's 15 minutes late, and I can understand why if they have a lot of stuff stuffed into the schedule for the day. But learning to be flexible even with time can help us a lot with what's going on right now. Because
Yeah.
time is the calendar and the clocks, all of that stuff was us controlling time. Time isn't even what we think it is,
No,
you
it
know?
would be so much easier if we were just like up at sun up, down at sundown, or whatever. If we followed natural rhythms, this has been
Hmm.
something that's been so important to me. Natural rhythm is huge,
Yeah, yeah.
huge. I'm not going to say that I wake up at sunrise. No, I don't. But I'm not up too shortly afterwards because I really do appreciate, I personally appreciate that moment. But I also really like to sleep in.
I
So
hear
I'm
that.
not, I do what feels right for me in the moment while trying to make sure, not trying to make sure, while making sure that I'm not sticking to, staying within my own integrity of self.
Yep, yep. And that is at least from my perspective, right? I mean, it's going to be different for everyone, but at least on my path and from my perspective, I feel like these are keys to what will create the most beneficial circumstances for everyone on the planet. And again, it could sound idealistic, but I just like to make it more grounded and practical. If we just think about the concept of self-ownership and self-responsibility, if we were taking that on, then we would be partaking in, because there's two kinds of guilt, I guess is the good way to put it. There's natural guilt, which is the guilt from within our own conscience, untainted from the spirit. And then there's conditioned guilt, which is usually stuff that maybe well-meaning people or not have kind of inseminated into us that we consent and take on, that actually doesn't help our seed to turn into the tree that we're meant to become. And so, um, yeah, like I just feel like it's so important for us to, how do I put it, be okay with not always being perfect. I think we were saying that in the beginning, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
actually kind of like I I like putting out their mistakes, and I like putting out their yucky feelings.
Hmm.
Yucky feelings. I like uncomfortableness because it's growth. And there's always growth that can be found in it, or it comes right after it, or it's happening in it's a process. So I'm I'm kind of an instigator, a little bit of that coyote medicine where I like to poke at things because it brings about change.
Well, and when we think about it, I mean, change, well, I mean, it's just like you said, change is uncomfortable. And yet it's always happening. So it's sort of like the more comfort we have in being uncomfortable, the better. Like you mentioned, you like putting mistakes out there, or feel like showing feelings that other people might be not so comfortable with or whatever. But the thing is that these things, if they're coming from sincerity, I don't know, I think it just contributes to healthiness, because there are people out there who are witnessing this that are saying, "Oh, it's okay. You mean it's
Yeah,
okay to do that? Oh God,
absolutely.
I always thought it wasn't okay. Oh, what a relief."
It's like a valve releases for them sometimes. I've gotten more than a few messages where I'm having them share with me how just my honesty was the opportunity for them to be honest with themselves, or at least admit it to themselves. And I think that that's huge.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, because it's not easy to get out there, especially if you have to say something that maybe has been held in, not just for a long time for yourself, but sometimes it's like releasing ancient, like kind of just like an ancient valve, I guess we could
Yeah.
say, like a Yellowstone, like Old Faithful kind of like that. Just let the geyser of like energy that just needs to be released
And when
out
it
there.
does, there's complete, oh, I mean, there's space opened up for something new to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the funny thing, is that incredible evolution can actually come from the most uncomfortable and seemingly awkward experiences, or situations. I mean, I know for me personally, some of my greatest growth has come from expressing feelings that I thought would upset other people if I expressed them publicly, but they just had to come out, and my body wasn't even going to let it stay in anymore. So, I mean, it's like when you let yourself kind of be, it is going to be awkward or unnatural, not unnatural, but uncomfortable sometimes. And maybe it'll even seem unnatural to others. I've had people say to me, that's not you. And I'm like, what do you mean? This has always been me. You just never seen this part. Because I was afraid to show it to you because I thought this would happen.
How many times do we do that though, where we hide a part of ourself, or a gift that we have, or something that we are, because it's just not what everybody else is doing, and we've been shown very, very clearly what happens to people who are not the norm.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
they're ostracized, they're chastised, they're ridiculed, they're made fun of, they're teased and taunted, and stones are thrown at them. And I mean, of course, I'm over exaggerating, but not really.
Well, in some cases, not at all.
Exactly.
Not an exaggeration at all, I mean to say.
No. Now, you did a video a couple days ago, and I wasn't necessarily going to talk about this, but I think it needs to be spoken about. And you can stop me if you like, but I
No,
don't think
go,
you
go,
will.
yeah,
Yeah.
go for it. Go for it.
Okay, so you did a video about the white devil, and it's very
Hmm.
interesting because there's a whole bunch of touchy feelings about this, and white people are going to feel a lot of guilt. I went through bouts of it, still do occasionally sometimes, because of the world's narrative and everything that's gone down. And
Yeah.
you spoke about the idea. Now, I spent a lot of time in Indigenous communities in my area and outside of my area. And The word used for what you're talking about is called wetiko or wetiko, or there's other words. Paul Levey wrote a book, and then there was Cannibals and Other, or Columbus and Other Cannibals was a book that I recommended to you that I really think that you'll find disturbingly fascinating as far as explaining what the entity is
Mm-hmm.
that has kind of overtaken, and we'll say, white culture. And but it bleeds through all of the cultures. So let's talk about that a little bit. Is that enough for me to let you go?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Oh,
let's definitely talk about that.
good.
Part of the well, part of the guilt thing, right? I mean, the reason why this is something that's really close to my work. The reason why the guilt exists is because the root causal factors haven't been addressed. We haven't addressed the evil that exists that we just think we can sweep under the rug. It sucks that the sins of the father is actually a thing for us, but we do take on through our DNA the memories of our past. This is why sometimes we'll have trauma or like some sort of a mental health issue that sometimes can't be explained because we might have carried it in. You know, it's our karma to experience this and evolve through it for whatever reason. And part of, one moment,
All good.
sorry, I just had to clear my throat.
You're fine.
Um, part of the issue is that this evil is not fun to look at. Now, I mentioned in my video Catrice M. Jackson. She's a woman who works to rehabilitate racism in white women, which sounds like a weird thing. It sounds like a very strange thing, but yet, and it's even stranger actually when you watch it go down. It's almost like she's literally exercising people because she's Scorpio, of course, so she's good at pinpointing
Of
straight to the
course
point
she
through their
has.
bullshit, right? And so she will talk to these women, and like the stuff she unearths as far as getting them to admit what they've been carrying as far as their hatred and their lack of compassion is most of the time the lack of compassion for the pain of Black women. It comes from what I can tell, it's because to acknowledge that that exists within us, a resentment, a slave master mentality, maybe even a jealousy or a hatred or a will to hurt or to want to see harm. People don't like admitting that these feelings exist in us, but yet the only way to get rid of them is to see them. And this is a huge thing as far as from what I can tell with white guilt and the stuff like I was seeing in this, like the exorcism type work she was doing that I like to call it, is it is something that you're almost like having to rip from you because it lives inside of us, feeding on us like a leech that we don't see, like
Yeah.
those little parasites in our gut that tell us to eat bread that we don't know are there.
Yeah.
Um, it's sort of like that. It's a force, and so this force is contagious. It doesn't just affect white people. It affects everyone, but in different ways based on our racial memory, our ancestral history, and these kinds of things, or even our current life, right? And so this white devil energy, you know, I just called it that because I didn't know what else to say at the time because of the topic matter. But really what it is it is this insidious energy that I feel comes from living so out of integrity with goodness for such a long time. Like it's just this exploitative, evil, gross energy. And it gets so twisted
What's
that,
been called, one second, it's been called
mm,
spiritual cannibalism,
oh,
which I
interesting.
think is a really fantastic way of putting it. Spiritual cannibalism, you're eating people's spirits.
Yeah.
This is a way of destroying somebody from the inside out. And speaking from not speaking from, but an idea about the way that white women do things sometimes. I think that we have so much Stockholm syndrome that we don't
Mm-hmm.
even see the ways that we are still subservient, and um, a bastardized version of femininity has taken over what we're supposed to be embodying, that sometimes we can't even see the lie that we might be living
Yeah,
because
100%.
of it.
Yeah.
Because we're so, like, I had said this to you in off chat yesterday. This is going back, and you reiterated tens of thousands of years. I'm saying, say, 6,000, 7,000 years of this being done, and it going back even farther. But the white culture has been, and I don't mean taken first by any mean. There's going to be people that are going to listen to this, and I apologize if I trigger you and upset you. It's not my intention. But the white culture is used to being this way. They became docile to their slavery, our slavery, a
Hmm.
long time ago, and they're selling it to the rest of the world like it's civilized living.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes, very much. One of the things Catrice talks about that Black people have to endure, and I know this myself because, you know me, I got a mouth, is this need to tone shift to even change how we talk, like the way that I speak. I like will have many different ways of vernacular or speaking. And of course, it's not just Black people who have this. Everyone has to shift based on what class they're present in society, you know, of people or whatever. And it's so weird. Um, we can see it very much strongly exemplified in Black culture, though, for instance, like even the whole, you know, like what do they call it? African American vernacular English, which basically is equivalent to just like Black dialect in the
Okay.
States, right?
Yep.
And so they have like they have a term for it. It's African American vernacular English, as far as I know, and this can be, you know, like just the fact that like even how people speak are being policed. It's like just interesting because the suppression of communication is, to me, I know this sounds like the stuff I say can sound out there, but the more you study the occult, the more you dig into psychology and history, you see that this stuff is actually severe crimes against humanity to for thousands of years suppress people's voices. And the like I was saying, and when I was talking about this before, with Black and Indigenous, the wounds are fresher. But as you pointed out, very importantly, it's not like it wasn't happening to other people, especially white people. It's just that it was happening for so long that I feel like the trauma has been numbed severely in such a way where empathy is hard to tap into for some people without incredibly strong emotions that can be hard to even understand or make sense of that come up, like repulsion, disgust, denial, like all these kinds of things. I mean, I've been there for different reasons. Like, it can be really hard to even want to go into those feelings to find out what the hell they're even trying to say or where they come from.
Well, some of the older generation of females I've noticed are so hardened to it that they can't understand why we can't shut the fuck up and just deal with it. Deal with
Mm-hmm.
what we're being given. I never had time off when I was a mother, and I never did this, and nobody gave me this when I did this. You shouldn't have it either. And it's like, wow, how wounded are you that you would keep a healing from the rest of your sisters because you had to endure hell?
It's an incredible darkness in the feminine psyche that is, it is something that once we see it all for what, like more and more of us see it for what it is, oh my God, the transmutation that will take place. Because we're here to be giving life. We're here to support life, to nourish life. Like that's what I feel at least. And I'm quite a tomboy, like very masculine. I got a lot of masculine energy. And even as like biologically though, as a woman, like I feel like that's what we're here to do in our own unique way, all of us, right? The feminine energy though is here to heal, bring life, to nourish, and to support. And so because I feel like for so long the power of the feminine has been resented, feared, vilified, and sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for just horrible, violent, and nonsensical, sadistic reasons, that we've just become so twisted that we don't even know what we're feeling and why, and it's just a huge melange of confusion, you know, for most
Oh,
people, I would say, like the gen pop kind of a thing.
am I unmuted? I'm
Uh,
unmuted. Okay.
yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, because I looked at my computer and it said I was muted, and I was like, wait a minute, no, I just undid that.
Okay.
Okay, so my thought on this is I don't think that we are all just nourishing and nurturing and
Fair.
life giving. I think that we are both, that dark goddess, that there's a darkness too. There is also the mother.
Hmm.
If you look at a wolf pack and you look at the wolf mother, and the wolf mother knows that that one baby wolf is going to hurt the rest of the pack, what does that wolf mother do? Do I need to answer this?
Yeah, we get it.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to say that like there is a time and a place, and there has to be balance. We're coming to this time of balance, and I for sure don't feel like there is balance right now, and I think that maybe everybody's gone too far to one side at the same time while distorting it with masculine destructive energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean I think that's just a random idea that just came into my head.
No, but that's totally fair because that's the thing with balance. There's all sides of us. There's a psychopath in us just as much as there is an altruist. But that's where it is, where at the end of the day, we're all here to enact and to create based on what our inner it dictates are calling for. And so that's like, as far as the nourishing goes and the stuff I talk about, as far as the feminine goes, it can look very different from woman to woman, from person to person. And
Sure.
so, on one hand, sometimes we do need like that nourishment for the rest of those pups, like you said. The way to survive and to take care of them was for the good of the many to deal with the violent one in the
That
way that
sounds
needed
so
to be.
awful, right? But I mean, that's nature. This is just me borrowing from nature, not trying to justify violence or justify abandonment or justify it's trying to speak to nature's cycle.
Right. And if you think about it this way too, if we knew how to exist in complete harmony, would there be any need to evolve at all? Would we even need to exist? And would the world even be like this? Like I just honestly, like where I come from, at least what I understand is there's no such thing as perfection. It's a constant unfoldment that is like cause and effect. And what we put in is what comes out. And so sometimes the choices aren't always clear. Like for instance, um, we're just gonna talk about all the triggering stuff today. But like for instance,
I'll put a warning.
veganism.
Hold on,
Yeah,
I'll put a
yes.
warning at the beginning of the show. This is a triggering show. We apologize, but not really because we love you.
In all honesty, and that's where it comes from. It's all love, right? Like it's a desire to see everyone happy and healthy from what I can tell. And like so, yeah, I mean, the whole what was I talking about? I can't remember where I was going with that.
Ah,
What
I
did I say just
apologize.
before that? It was oh shoot, give me a sec. Oh yes, so I was talking about like having to eat the pups like or eat that one pup or deal with that one pup that
Hmm.
sometimes it's just not cut and dry what the right thing to do is, what the most loving thing to do is. And so we do our best, and we see that with vegans, a lot of them doing their best eating plants, killing and murdering plant life in order to survive. And then we've got other people who will eat grass-fed meat and farm-raised meat only exclusively, and other people who eat factory farm, whatever. But like what it is regardless, everyone has to kill something in order to live. And that's a truth that I feel like more people need to just be okay with and then make the best decisions they can based on what they're called to do. Because some
Yeah,
people think it's flying palm oil in from the Amazon for their cashew burger made by Taiwanese slaves, the or harvested by Taiwanese slaves. Some people think that's better.
with
And
all
then
those
there are
lovely preservatives, with all their carcinogenic qualities and stuff.
Yum, yummy. And then other people think like it's more like I'll eat meat, but I just gotta eat local. Like we're all just trying to figure it out. And so I
Yep.
feel like that's the thing about evil, and I think that's why it's easy for people to be relativistic about the concept of evil, where it's an opinion rather than fact, which is just a fallacy in my from my perspective at least. It seems like a fallacy. Um,
No, for sure.
it's just we're trying to figure it out through feeling, I think, a lot of us, like coming back to that and trusting that we can know what's right, and if we make a mistake, with sincerity we can correct if we feel called to. Like it's all about our own responsibility at the end of the day. I mean, even with the astrology I was mentioning, that's what the summer's going to be about, when we may have
I
to get rid of stuff that's we were uncomfortable to get rid of. And anyway, yeah, that was
No,
sorry.
it's funny. I love that you just said that because I was coming back there too. You were
Hmm.
just saying that, this is going to be a summer of reclaiming your sovereignty or not. And that's
Hmm.
how it feels to me. With what you've said, it's this idea of taking responsibility, taking personal responsibility. Now, something that we do see, and it's becoming incredibly prevalent in our society in the way that we're even excited by it, this cult worship mentality kind of thing. And cult of personalities coming out of the woodwork, and people really wanting to be followers. Please tell me what I need to do. Please tell me what to believe in. Please tell me what to eat. Please tell me how to breathe. I mean, I get it, but that how do you how do you see that working out for the cult of personality, you know, pinup person this
Oh
summer?
man, this summer, it's a tough one because it's going to depend on the person's virtue, to be honest with you, because there's been stuff that's been in the works for a few years now that like we've seen with like the Me Too movement with Epstein, like these things kind of trickling out, unwanted information, the
Mm-hmm.
WikiLeaks, even all this stuff. Like this has been ramping up since Occupy, even more probably before that, but like I've noticed it around then. Um, just slowly ramping up with all of this. And from what I can tell over the summer, I would say we're gonna see who is actually a sincere human being and who isn't. In some ways, there's a potential for that. It may not manifest over the summer. It might actually be something that comes out closer to election time, but it might even be after that, to be honest with you. I mean, we're in for a long haul, you guys, as far as this shift goes, right? Like a lot of stuff is coming loose. Little things that we didn't notice, little chips in the paint, are starting to become revealed because um, these are physical representations of a shifting paradigm on multitude of dimensions. And so as far as these cult of personalities, we got a lot of Pluto and Sagittarius kids in the world that are in their 20s, right? And with that, from what I have noticed, it could really go in either direction. Like it's the worst thing as somebody who works as a psychic for a living to say that, but I honestly feel that way because I'm on my own timeline too, right? And part of like the timeline that unfolds for me is also going to be determined on a lot of this. For me, from my perspective, I feel like a lot of it's going to have to do with how badly do I want to go home. And so I feel like that's going to be the case for a lot of us. And as far as these cults of personality, I mean, a lot of the masses just follow them. And I got to be honest with you, I think a lot of the masses, the lights are on, but nobody's really actually at the wheel. And so it's not to, and some of these people too, on a soul level, are very child, like I mean, I'm a child, like at heart and in my soul, very much infantile. I'm not gonna lie, but on a large scale, the masses are very much in an infant stage. And so I, as angry as I get with the concept of not thinking for ourselves or needing help with that, some of these people do need guidance, and it's really messed up what's happening.
Yeah.
I would love to see more sincere leadership manifest, but there's also concerted effort to suppress those kinds of things. So um, that's why I always bring it back to the individual. Like we just have to work on ourselves as much as we feel called to, and not in a way that's masochistic where we think there's something that needs to be fixed. Although paradoxically there is, it's about just tending to ourselves like we would tend to a garden, just taking good
Oh,
care of ourselves.
well, you just said how badly I want to go home, so expand on that a little bit more.
Okay. Well, me myself, like just as my own personal story, I incarnated into this world knowing what it was to be completely free, like to be completely open and loving and free with
Mhm.
nothing, unmarred. I remember this distinctly, and I also remember it getting beaten out of me distinctly as well. um,
Yeah.
but I know what it feels like, and I also know this world, this dimension is like what is happening here in this physical realm is not the way it's supposed to be. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Anyone who tries to fucking tell me, and I'm gonna go on a rant here, but anyone who tries to fucking tell me that this is just how it is and that this is human nature is full of shit and doesn't actually understand history. They don't actually understand what the hell's actually happening here. The crimes against humanity that have been committed in my guts are on, like they're on fire, just knowing
Mm-hmm.
the gravity of the crimes that have been committed and are being committed. So like where I'm at as far as going home, I know that this is not home. What we have manifested here, and all time is happening concurrently, what we've manifested here is not the natural timeline at all, at all, at all.
That's
And so,
really interesting to me because I said years ago that I feel like I'm here this time and I know that this is not the way it's supposed to be and I'm pissed about it. Like
mm-hmm,
everywhere I look, it's wrong. That's not supposed to be happening. This is not the way we're supposed to be living. And it's not that I think I know better, but inherently I know that this is not the way it was the last time I was here, or one of the times I was here, or whatever you want to say. But I have this
mm-hmm.
inside knowing that, yeah, it's not supposed to be this way. And it really wasn't this way. And why are we so far gone off the path?
Yeah, like even as a kid, I didn't get it. I would ask people questions like, why do you lie? Why do you lie? Why would you say that about another person? Why are you so mean? Why are you hurting that person's heart
Yeah,
because they look a certain way and you don't like them? I can tell you actually want to hurt this person. Why do you want to hurt them? Like, I never got that. And then I learned how to exhibit those behaviors because that was a survival thing, right? But
absolutely.
I, on a soul level and on a deep fundamental level, it never sat right because I know it's not the way it's meant to be. Maybe it is in this particular reality, but where I came from, I don't know. I rolled in here thinking that I got on the wrong bus or something.
Yeah, right.
I'm just like, what the hell is this, right? Like that's how I felt ever since I was little. I didn't understand the concepts of lying to people or wanting to hurt people or judging people's even their appearance, like any of these things. I never understood any of these things until it was taught. And so going home to me is going home to, well, I see it as health. Honestly, I see it as a healthy state where we're seeing clearly there's not this suppressive, exploitative mentality. People are fully intact. They're not fragmented. Most people on an ego soul level are incredibly fragmented, um, just as a result of living in a very, well, we can almost see this reality as like incredibly coarse sandpaper that kind of polishes us into pretty little stones, but a lot of who we are has been
Sloughed
eroded
away.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And yet it never really leaves, but it kind of, it's almost like we contort ourselves into a different shape to accommodate in order to survive. And
We're
these
worn
types of
down.
things are not natural, right? What's
No,
that?
we're worn down.
Yeah. And if we think about trees and plants and just how things grow, just watching it, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this yourself, right? When we watch plants grow, they are moving towards the light generally, right? We can see they lean towards it. And most people, in their own way, lean towards that light inside themselves to become that thing. But if there are stakes in the ground or little ties around you, or you're kind of like put in a box and grown into a box like those Japanese watermelons, like you won't
Yeah.
become yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of um, like to me, I feel like I just feel like prioritizing the just allowing our seed to bloom into what it was supposed to bloom into is actually the best thing we can do to bring ourselves back to a state of home. Funny enough, now I don't know if there's anything to this, I don't know the etymology, but it's funny how homeostasis has the word home in it, and it's actually a requirement for us to be healthy, to be in
Right.
homeostasis, right?
That's
So
beautiful. And I have to say
yeah.
that I agree with, I just agree with what you've shared there because that's more or less how it feels to me. Different words, similar feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have been talking for an entire hour, and I know that we could give the listeners another hour if we wanted to, but I'd rather save that maybe for another time,
Yeah.
because I'd love to have you back on the show. And I was wondering if you could just tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where they can find you, some of the services that you offer, and yeah, a little shameless self promo because you're a beautiful person and I want to share you.
Thanks. I really appreciate that very much. Yeah, so my website is adeptguidance.com, and pretty excited because it's going to get an update here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, at adeptguidance.com, I provide services to people to help them wherever they feel the called that they need to empowerment or help, really. I mean, I work as an astrologer, I also work as a psychic, and a spiritual counselor. So I wear a lot of different hats and use a lot of different tools, essentially to get information. And the information, the direction I take, the lens I use to get that information is completely dependent on your needs and what it is you want. And I tend to like to work with people who are working on themselves or have goals in their life or are wanting to bring more love into their life or to become a more empowered and loving person. And when I say that, how an empowered and loving person may not be what other people have defined it as. What I try to help you with is finding how to define that for yourself just by giving you information via things like your astrological charts, how the weather at the moment or going into the future is affecting your astrological chart, using divination to look into paths and trajectories to see what paths and trajectories are working out best for you and which ones maybe to avoid. These are the things that I provide. And usually how I work with people, I recommend you email me at path@adeptguidance.com, which is PATH@adeptguidance.com, and just tell me a bit about what it is you're looking to know if you don't know what kind of service you need, and we can go from there.
That's awesome. And that's basically what I did. I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I have this problem and I'm wondering about this. And hey, I would love to do another chart for my husband and I so that and that was beautiful. Anybody's looking for like a couples chart? What I don't remember the name that you called them.
Oh, so a synastry chart, that's when you take two charts and compare them. And then there's another one, which I really love to do. It's called a composite chart. And that's when you
That
take
one.
two people and you mix them together, their charts, and it makes a brand new chart, which is your relationship as a third entity. So you get to kind of look at that. And it's very, very useful.
Yeah, we really appreciated it. We've listened to it a couple times now, and it honestly, it spoke to exactly what our marriage is, our little issues, and not little issues, our issues. And also, like some of the stuff that you've said were like, this could be coming up, they've already started to happen. And like us both going our own separate ways, but being able to support each other as we're doing those things. It's quite lovely. So I do recommend that if anybody is interested and you are digging deep, that Sarah's amazing. And I've been looking for her for a long time, and I'm so glad she showed up because sometimes you need a little bit of extra that is in that same light as where you're looking. So it's very much appreciated. I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I love we've never had this back and forth conversation. So this is really nice. It's a first for us. We usually do it on in our messages and whatnot, but this has been lovely. I appreciate having you on the show. Hopefully have you maybe at the end of the summer, once we get to the other side of all this sovereignty taking back of that we should be working on the entire summer.
Yeah, I would love to come back. It's going to be an entirely unfolding process, though. So, like I was saying, no rushing on yourself. Just take it day to day. And yeah, I'd love to come back and talk more because, like I was saying, Mars is going to go retrograde in about mid-September, and it will be. It's good to know how that energy works. So, I would love to share that with you to empower everybody for sure. Yeah.
That would be awesome. All right. Do you have any final words for everybody before you leave them?
Let me think. Well, not really, other than thanks for listening with an open mind. I really appreciate when people do that, and yeah, just thanks for listening, really.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was lovely to have you. I can't wait to have you again. To everybody that's been listening today, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, stay lifted.